Hi, my name is Dr. John Douillard, and I want to talk to you today about one of my absolute favorite yoga posture sequences called the Sun Salutation or Surya Namaskara. When I was first training in India back in 1986, I actually did a thesis on Surya Namaskara. So I studied this for many years. And recently in my clinical practice, I have really come to appreciate the Sun Salutation exercise in a much more profound way than I ever knew, even as I wrote about it and studied it in great detail. And the one area that this exercise seems to work profoundly on is this spot right here, where the rib cage and your abdomen meet, where your diaphragm separates your lungs and your lower abdomen. And I've talked about this in my heartburn series articles. I've talked about this in my stomach pulling articles. But I want to talk to you today about this exercise from a perspective that's not just about digestion, but about so many things. If there was a fulcrum in your body, it's right here in the middle. When you breathe, your diaphragm contracts and it pulls air into the lower lobes of your lungs. Now, in the lower lobes of your lungs, you have about 80% of the blood, which is primarily important for getting oxygen in, but really critical for getting waste out. New science has shown that one of the major ways we get rid of fat out of our body is by breathing efficiently into the lower lobes, oxygen-rich, blood-rich lower lobes of your lungs. But most people breathe like rabbits, little tiny shallow breaths, and they breathe into the upper chest. And we never breathe deeply into the lower lobes of our lungs, so we never activate and exchange the waste out, fat out, waste out, or get as efficiently the nutrition in. Now, studies show that we get plenty of oxygen in by breathing shallow, but we don't get the oxygen or the waste out by breathing shallow. Thus, the Sun Salutation, which is, as we'll see here in a minute, fulcrumed, focused, dedicated to open up and free this part of your body. It's just phenomenal when I talk to you about this. Now, in addition, in the lower lobes of your lungs, which most people don't breathe into, you have 80% or the vast majority of your calming, parasympathetic, rejuvenative nervous system. That nervous system also activates digestion and rest and rejuvenation. So if your rib cage has become cage-like, rigid, and you're breathing in the upper chest, you're going to have a hard time activating calm nerves, being calm in your skin, activating digestion, turning your digestion on. How many folks get stressed out and don't digest well? These are like major problems that a lot of us have, right? So, and the diaphragm's job is to contract and pull the air down there. But if the rib cage has become cage-like because we're breathing in the upper chest, 26,000 breaths per day, the rib cage becomes cage-like, more cage-like, and instead of being 12 levers to massage your heart and your lungs, it becomes this 12 ribs caging in everything, making everything very rigid. Now, the diaphragm is very important because underneath it, you have your stomach and your liver, a bunch of other stuff too, but your esophagus goes right through the diaphragm, and it hangs off, and the stomach hangs off the diaphragm, and that's where all the food is. Well, there are some issues with digestion, and to sort of make this simple, it's going to be hard, so hang in here with me. We were told not to eat cholesterol 60 years ago. We replaced that fat as a fuel supply with sugar. We have a culture that has been living on corn and wheat and not getting very much fat. As a result, we have an epidemic of sluggish bile flow in our culture. Bile mitigates acid coming from your stomach. So if you don't have good bile, your stomach's going to say, hey, I got all this acid up here to cook all the food, but there's no bile to neutralize it, so I'm going to hold on to the acid as long as I possibly can. And it causes this thing called occasional heartburn. And the acid starts to burn. And it actually pushes up against your diaphragm, right? And when that happens, the diaphragm, the stomach can literally stick to and adhere to the underside of the diaphragmatic wall. And over time, it can create what's called a hiatal hernia, where there's so much pressure pushing up against the stomach on the diaphragm, the stomach pops through as a hernia through what's called the lower esophageal sphincter. It's a really serious thing. But many years before you actually have a hernia, where the stomach pops through the diaphragm of the esophagus, of the lower esophageal sphincter, through the diaphragm, you've got years of pressure. And that pressure can adhere the stomach to the underside of the diaphragm. Now you've got this big old stomach hanging off the diaphragm. It doesn't make it feel very comfortable contracting and pulling the air into the lower lobes of your lungs. So then if you have a baby, and that's a baby pushing up on your stomach onto the diaphragm, lots of women postpartum have real chronic underlying digestive, breathing deep, handling stress issues. A lot of it happens in this fulcrum. Okay, so finally, the sun salutation. Why is it so great? Well, one of the reasons why it's so great is that when you do the sun salutation, it's a series of extension and flexion postures. So when you do the first posture in the sun salutation and you go up and back, what you're doing is the rib cage, the diaphragm is pulling down as you breathe in. So as you're going up and back, the diaphragm is pulling this way, and you're pulling your rib cage this way. So you're creating separation between these two places right here because the diaphragm is pulling down and you're going back up. So you're creating separation right here. So as you breathe in and arch yourself back, diaphragm, they're going like this. And then as you breathe out and you flex forward, everything like accordions in, and all of a sudden everything folds in like an accordion and all the blood rushes in there and the blood goes, oh, this is so nice. And then as you go into the next lunging extension posture, diaphragm goes down, rib cage goes back into extension, and you stretch it out again with new blood breaking up scar tissue in those muscles, creating more elasticity, and then you accordion it together again, creating an accordion where all the blood rushes in there. Now with new blood, you have more elasticity. You're going to stretch it out again into the next extension posture, next flexion posture, next extension posture. It's like an incredible massage for this incredible fulcrum that is designed to free up the rib cage, give access to the lower lobes of your lungs. And when you breathe through your nose, which you got to do, by the way, that lets the air go all the way down into the lower lobes of your lungs, activate those calm nerves, give you better exchange for the waste. The fat that we now know from science is actually being released out of the body through the lower lobes of your lungs during exhalation, and freeing up the stomach so it's not hanging off your diaphragm, creating rigidity and compromising your digestion. Because over time, if your stomach is stuck to the diaphragmatic wall, it can't really contract and move the acid and the food out. So you end up having this very common thing called gastroparesis, which means that people aren't emptying the food out of their stomach quickly and efficiently. It stays too long. That's in many cases due to this upward moving vata, this upward moving pressure that came from lack of bile flow, which came from years of not having fats to make force bile flow to happen, and that fat fuel, which we have thousands, millions of years of genetics to digest, was replaced with sugar and corn and wheat, which we don't have much genetics to digest. And that left us with blood sugar issues, but in this case, left us with not enough bile to mitigate the acid in your stomach. So the acid lingers in your stomach, leaves acid there, can cause heartburn and upward moving pressure, and cause the stomach to begin to adhere to that underside of the diaphragm, causing lower lobe rigidity. I've written a ton about this topic. I have never talked about the sun salutation in this way, but there's so many techniques you can do to open this up. Read my stomach pulling articles, my occasional heartburn articles, and my digestive articles to learn more about this, and read the article associated with this video. And also there's an attached video to take you step by step through the actual sun salutation exercise so you can see that in motion. It's a really beautiful exercise. And there's also the article that describes what I'm talking about in great detail. So please enjoy this. In India, they line up in front of the sun every morning, and they do this exercise for thousands of years. And I'm beginning to love it, respect it, understand it more and more with each passing day as I understand the clinical effectiveness and how incredibly important it is for us in this day and age with these types of imbalance. Please check it out. Enjoy the sun salutation with this little bit of emphasis and awareness. Thanks for listening. I'm Dr. John Douillard. Hi, did you like this video? Do you like our content here at LifeSpa? You can subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/John Douillard right here and get this valuable content every week in your inbox.
This recording is brought to you by LifeSpa. where ancient Ayurvedic wisdom meets modern science. Get access to free health video newsletters by Dr. John at LifeSpa.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.